Hey there, welcome back filmmakers. Today's episode is all about how do you stay motivated when things get tough.
This is really challenging when things aren't going your way, you can't get the funding, the crew's, nowhere to be found. How do you keep going?
All right, so we're going to cover off a few things that we hope will help you along the journey. And I really want to start with why you're making the film. So that's pretty important, the why.
Yeah, I think the why is a huge motivator. Like if you can really stay true to that why, what's the impact your film's going to have on the world? What's the story that you're telling? Who needs to see it? Why is it important? Why is it important to you? Why is it important for the audience?
Yeah, and part of this is about service, right? Like you're all going to be a bit different about your motivations and how internally or externally motivated you are, but ultimately films are made for audiences. I think this is really important to keep in mind because as filmmakers, we are really here to serve an audience. And for most of us, we want that audience to be enriched in some way from the work that we're producing. So it's your calling to do this work. So let's get out there and support you to make that happen.
And that's a big part of why we're actually producing this series, is because we really want to help you in your filmmaking craft and staying motivated, because so many people drop out of filmmaking because they just, they can't get their film off the ground, or they can't quite get it finished or funded or whatever it is, and then other things take priorities, and then maybe they start working in a different area, like the day job to pay for the film, and then slowly but surely they move into different areas.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest dark clouds that hangs over us all as filmmakers is this idea of the starving artist. That there's almost a social expectation that you are going to be broke, destitute, doing it tough to do this work.
Yeah, and that it's more of a hobby than a career,
That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And you will fall by the wayside if you take that approach. So I think it's actually really important to think about funding, to think about how you find balance in your life so that you're able to make a living by doing this important work. How do you find collaborators who will help you to do that, to make meaningful work, but also to make a living and be on some kind of upward trajectory as you go along? I think, when I hear about filmmakers who risk everything on their films, I find that quite demoralizing because, most other people don't need to take those types of risks. And I don't think you need to as well.
Yeah, that's pretty. I remember going to an Adelaide festival many years ago, and the theme was art should be fatal. If it's not, it isn't worth it. And I've never resonated with that because art's really important and what you do is really important, but it shouldn't be at the expense of all else.
Yeah. Now, I've been working in this area for about 20 years, and look, I'll be honest, there are many passion projects that I would have loved to invest years of my life into. Had I done that, I wouldn't have been able to progress in other areas of my life in terms of, being able to have a family probably, and, live in the neighbourhood I wanted to live in and all these types of important things. So it became really important then to find a way to have a balance between work that I could really invest myself in, but work that could also be sustainable in terms of finding the financial support that you need to make the work and pay for your lifestyle. So I think that's going to be really critical in terms of finding motivation, is getting that balance right. Thinking about how do you find the alignment between work you're passionate about and something that someone is willing to pay for.
I think Walt Disney had a great quote on this. He said, "We don't make movies to make money, we make money so that we can make more movies." And I think that is what it comes down to. Sometimes you're not going to be able to make your passion project be a financial winner, but you can make other projects that will sustain your career and have your passion project, but don't necessarily make your passion project the be all and end all. Sometimes
I think a problem is where we really focus on the success stories, and they're often very unobtainable, So you hear these stories in filmmaking about someone who goes into isolation and writes a script. Sometimes it's in a very short period of time, sometimes over an extended period as well. I think there are a couple of issues. I think knocking out a really high quality script in a really short amount of time is an incredibly rare exception. I know it happens, and that's great. for the filmmakers that have that happen in their careers, often they're not able to reproduce that film after film after film. So I wouldn't be shooting for that personally. The other thing is being in isolation for long periods of time I don't think is very healthy, because ultimately filmmaking is a team sport. It relies on relationships and having an understanding of life and what's going on in life. So you need to be having a life, I think, to be able to do this work well and connect through to audiences. You need to have your life running in parallel to your filmmaking career.
I think a way that you can really stay motivated too, if you think about it, is having the wins along the way. So having those little successes as you go can really help build your motivation. And I think it comes back to, no one wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm so motivated, I'm going to do everything today, every day of the year. Motivation doesn't happen to you, you build motivation. So when you start something, when you begin something and you get a little bit of success with it and then you get a little bit more, and that's how the momentum builds, and that's where the motivation comes from. Because when you're feeling success, you feel motivated to do more of that because it's giving you the fulfillment and the reward. So, you've got to build momentum, which builds motivation. You can't expect to just wake up every day and go, oh, I'm motivated.
It's great to feed off these external drivers, successes that happen in your life, and why not? You should. But they're not always forthcoming when you need them. So you need to also be internally motivated and to sustain the journey.
Yeah, and success can be all sorts of things. Success can be you've finished writing your treatment.
Yeah.
It can be you've attached someone as talent that you really wanted to your project. It could be that you've gotten a meeting for some funding. Or you've got to really celebrate all these little tiny micro steps on the way. Like, there's so much involved in making a film. A film is a long commitment, and there's so many steps that every time you reach a milestone, every time you've set yourself a goal and you get to that goal, you've got to really celebrate it and pat yourself on the back, because that will keep you motivated.
I think this is where your cheer squad comes into it as well. So who are you surrounding yourself by who are really good collaborators, or just people who are celebrating your achievements, and they understand how much work and effort that you're putting into this, and they understand when a milestone's been reached. So patting yourself on the back's great, but it's also about helping each other along. And you and I do that a lot. One of us might be feeling demoralised and the other will remind, about, no, this is actually a really important part of the process because it's getting us towards the destination.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And, making films, creative pursuits, they are hard. It is really hard to put yourself out there every day, to put your work out there, to, stand in front of the critics and be ready to take it on. So you need a cheer squad around you just to, keep your confidence up.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. Like, as hard as it can be, I always come back to, I can't think of anything I'd want to be doing more.
I know someone said that to the other day. They came in for a shoot and they said, you guys get the best job. You do this every day. And I thought, oh yeah, I forget to celebrate that. So,
yeah. What do you think, Big Guy?
Celebrate the wins and enjoy the journey. Filmmaking is a rewarding career.
And I think it's also really helpful to think about what you love about filmmaking and make sure that you've sprinkled that in to whatever phase of the production you're at. Because sometimes it's really easy to get bogged down in finance or paperwork, and you think, I'll just do only that, and then you kind of burn out because it's not the thing that you love about film. Maybe it is, like maybe some filmmakers love that part of the process, but for me, the types of things that I love is writing, ideation and coming up with new ways to express that in terms of what could become films. But I can't do that non-stop. I would totally burn out. And the other thing is picking up cameras and actually filming, So it's really important to my sustainability that those things, those activities are sprinkled in amongst other things that might be I might find a bit more laborious.
I agree. I think diversifying your interests is really important, staying motivated. So you may be, like us, mainly focused on documentary film. We've got a couple, one in development, one might be in production, another one might be in release. And we're doing this long enough that we've got a bit of a cycle going. But even if you're early stage, I think it's really important, if you're creating a project, to also have something else going on, so that when one gets stalled, you can kind of have this other thing keeping you going, because otherwise if you've just got everything, all your eggs in one basket, and it doesn't go your way, that's where you're going to really lose that motivation.
Unless you're working in a company that is a real machine, you know, and some people will be watching this, that, you know, just has enough going on so that you're always in a certain stage of production. I find that most filmmaking goes in fits and spurts, you know, so I find it hard working only on one project, and I never do it anymore. And I haven't done it for years. I find it much more sustainable to have, you know, as the trope goes, you know, multiple projects in various stages of development. You know, like, you need to be spinning plates, you know, like move, you know, spin that plate, you know, and keep that moving on one production. And then, you know, when that loses momentum, go to the next one. And that keeps you in constant motion, which I think gets back to your point of achieving milestones and building momentum and keeping things going.
And also diversifying your skill set can be really motivating. So if you're really focused on wanting to be a director, that's awesome. But maybe pick up a camera and do a bit of filming as well, or maybe learn how to do a bit of script writing, or, you know, diversify your skill set so that, you know, that can actually give you more creative outlets, and one thing is going to actually spur on the other thing. So
we talked about imposter syndrome last episode. And actually, this is one major frustration I have with the way our industry works. Getting pigeonholed as a filmmaker. You know, being told you can only do this one specialist area, or you can only work in this one genre, or you can only be a documentary filmmaker, you know, and not do other types of films. I think that is such a false assumption. I think that is complete bullshit.
Oh, especially in documentary. I mean, you've got to be the jack of all trades in documentary. It doesn't mean you have to specialise in everything, but you do have to have a good understanding of all the different areas. Yeah,
filmmaking is storytelling visually, you know, and we do it through across genres, across durations, across formats. Don't feel limited, like that you have to be this one little thing only. If you want to specialise like that, great, go for it. But don't feel limited by it. And that's my relationship with that imposter idea. Because I do sometimes hear, you know, particularly screen agencies and stuff like that, sort of trying to put you in a box. And it's like, you know, off. Okay.
Okay, so don't be put in a box. Find ways to keep yourself motivated. You know, surround yourself with, you know, creative endeavours that aren't just about the one film that you're working on. Try and work on multiple things. Try and expand your skill set. You know, find mentors. Mentors are fantastic, and you don't have to have a mentor that you know personally. You can have mentors through. It could be a YouTuber that you find really inspirational. It could be an actor or another director, or, you know, something you can just immerse in their world and find out how they got things done. These are all really good ways to stay motivated, and also just keep yourself on track. Get those wins along the way, because that's how you build the momentum.
So what's coming up next in the series?
Oh, we've got so many good topics for you. We're going to cover everything from how to create a teaser, how to create a proposal, how to pitch your project for funding, how to attach talent. There's so many areas in development that we're still going to cover off. So make sure you subscribe so that you can come back next time and see those.